Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Igwe Chidema, and in today's tutorial guys is going to be the drafting of the back and the down part of this dress. I already made a video of the front part earlier, so let's get started. Here now is for our back part. So I've put my fabric on fold. I'm going ahead to take my shoulder measurement, and the shoulder I'm working with is 7 inches. Then the armhole is 7.5 inches. Then I'll take my bust point measurement, which is 10 inches. Then the full length, I'll be the half length, that's the waist, 17.5 inches. The half inches is for the stitching allowance. So connect everything together. To take my neckline measurement now, I'm using 4 by 2 inches for this back. So 4 inches for the width and 2 inches for the depth. So now for my back yoke. At first I wanted it to be 6, but later on I made it 7. So remember, this back I'm using a net for it, so I made it 6 at first, but later on I changed it to 7 inches. So this is the back yoke now. Right now I'm placing my tape on the neckline. I'm going down by 1 inch. This will serve as the button area where I'll put the button at the back. So you can do half an inch if you want, but mine is 1 inch. So on the 6 inches line I marked earlier, I go in by 3 inches. Note that for this yoke, you can come down as much as you want. You know, I told you I made 6 earlier, but later I made it 7. So you can come down as much as you want. So right now, I'll go ahead and connect the lines I made, like so. Now go ahead and start marking the body measurements. The first thing is the bust, and the bust I'm working with is 35. 35 inches divided by 4 will give us 8.75, and that is what I'm marking now. Then plus my 2 inches allowance. Then for the waist is 7 inches. Then plus 2 inches allowance. Then for the shoulder slant now, from the armhole line, I came down by half an inch. I don't do 1 inch, so mine is half an inch. From there, I connect it to the neckline, just like so. Then I'm cutting the neckline and then the other parts. So after cutting everything, open up this center area, which will serve as the button area. I'll use this to cut my net. So I keep it aside. So for this part now, remember this is not going to have a zipper allowance. So I'm going to take out 2 inches. This place will be the side that will be open. You know this dress is having a loop, right? So I'm going to cut this side open now. I'll cut another side that I'm going to use to cover the back because I wouldn't want the back to be open. So I'll cut out another pieces which will serve as the covering for the back loop. So now to determine the size of the fabric that I'll use for the covering at this back, I'll go ahead and take the measurement. So this is the back part now. So to get the covering for the back loop, I'll take the measurement of this back. And for my measurement now, it's 10 inches. So I'll use this to cut the pieces for the back. So it's 10 inches. So here I'm cutting the pieces for the back now. So everything is 10 by 10 inches. The width is 10 as well as the width. So now I'm done sewing the back now. I use the back panel to cut my lace and then as well as this net. So it is ready now, and this is the pieces that will be used for the back. So it is the back loop now that we are going to be working on. So right now for this back loop I used a bias tape for it. So I cut out 12 pieces in total. So now I'm determining how I want the spacing to be. So I made the space to be 1.5. I used 1.5, 1.5 inches or two. So that is what I did here. I marked it earlier, but I didn't video that, so I had to clean it up and start all over again. So this is 1.5, 1.5 inch, and it gave us 6 pieces. So I'm going to cut a total number of 6 bias loop, and I'll do the same at the other side. Okay, so this is what I have here, and the next thing you will do is to determine how the length you want to be sticking out like this now. So you determine how the length is going to be. That is what is going to guide you to know how the size that you're going to cut. Okay, I hope you understand. It will help you to know the size you're going to cut. So after this, the size I am working with is 3.5 inches here, like so. 3.5 inches, as you can see. So the line on this left side I marked on this right side as well. and I cut a total of 12 pieces of this bias tape for the both sides, 6 on one side and 6 on the other side, making it a total of 12 pieces. For this back loop, I cut a lining for it and I've gone ahead to stitch it up together, as you can see. And the next thing to do now is to start putting the bias pieces that I've cut. Here I was thinking that 6 is going to be too much, so I decided to reduce it to 4, but later again I had to still make it 6. So this is what we have finally, guys. So it is all ready and here ready to go. So for this rope, guys, I still made use of my bias tape. So this is what I used here, the bias. And the full measurement, the full length of this rope is the total measurement of our measuring tape. So I use, that's like 60 something, 65. Just if you know the full measurements of your tape, that is what I use for this rope. So I just measured everything and then I cut the bias and fold it together and stitched it up. That is what I used for this rope. For the sleeve now, I'm marking 26 inches. So from the top part, I measured 26 inches for the sleeve. So that is the full length of the sleeve, 26 inches. Again, from this top part, I'm coming down by 5 inches. This will serve as the curving, the point where I will curve the armhole. You know how you cut your basic sleeve. So as you can see, I folded this net into 2 places. I folded it a first time and then I folded it a second time. I folded it twice just so the net won't tear, because you know it is net, so you have to double it, if not it will tear quickly. So that was what I did. And now I'm coming down by 15 inches, that is the elbow area. So now to take the wrist measurement, the round wrist I'm working with is 7.5. So 7.5 divided by 2 will give us 3.75. So I took the measurement. And for the normal sleeve, it's 5 by 5, 5.5 inches. So I marked it. And then from this top part, you curve into the 5 inches we marked earlier. The net just kept moving and moving, and I kept marking. I just kept marking and marking and marking until I finally got the line perfectly. So here's the sleeve now. We'll be using it to cut the second part. So for the down part side now, for the full length of those dress is the full, in fact the full length of the dress is 60 inches. So remember our half length is 17 inches, right? So we're going to be taking away 17 inches from 60 inches. That will give us 43. But I'm more like using the full tape measurement. So here I'm marking 17 inches. So that will be our starting line. So on that starting line I just drew, I will take the waist measurement, and the waist measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. So 7 inches plus 2 inches allowance. Then from there I came down to 8 inches, which will be the point for the hip measurement. So I'm labeling it now. The top part I labeled waistline, so this is the hip line now. And then I'll go ahead and take the hip measurement, and the hip is 40 divided by 4 will give us 10 inches, then plus 2 inches allowance. Now from my waistline I came down by 25 inches. That is my new line, my new measurement. From my waistline to 25 inches will give us my new measurement. And because I don't want this to hold me tight on my nail so that I can walk freely, I went up by 4 inches. So from your nail line, go up by 4 inches, and that is where you're going to take your curving from. So when you have measured from your waistline down to your nail line, when you have gotten your nail line measurement, go up. Don't start your measuring from the nail line. Go up by 4 inches. Now for this down part, you're going to determine how wide you want it to be. You know, this is like an A-line dress. No, not like, it's like it's literally an A-line dress. So you will determine how wide you want it to be. Mine is 15 inches. Then on my new line right now, on your new line, you're going to take away 2 inches from your hip measurement. So as the hip is 10 inches, the new line is going to be 8 inches. So that is what I did here. So I did 8 inches plus 2 inches allowance. So that is what I did. And from there, I connected it to the down part line. So right now I'm done cutting the front panel. So I want to cut the back panel now. So as you can see, you're seeing KL twice. That's new line, new line. So the upper new line is the new line that I'm working with. The down one, is the first one I marked, but I went up by 4 inches. So that is why it's looking like I'm having two new lines. So right now I'm marking 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. I marked 1.5 from my waistline down to the new line. So I marked 1.5 inches. That is going to serve as my zipper allowance. And from there, I'm going to measure the down part of this back side, and on my tape I'm having 9 inches. Sorry if you cannot see it properly. I guess it was how I placed my camera. So from that new line where I marked the zipper area, the zipper line, I'm going to go ahead and connect it down to this line, this point I just made now. So now I want to add my slit. So this is the back part now after cutting it, and the front part is down. So I place this back panel on top of the front panel, as you can see. So I just aligned everything together as they are. But note, if you don't want your slit to be by the side, because at the end of the day my slit was at the side. So if you want your slit to be in the front, make sure your front panel is the one on top, because I placed my back panels on top and the front panel was down. So if you want your slit to be at the front, make sure your front panel is the one on top. Okay, so you go ahead and take your the slit, how you want it to be, how wide you want it to be, how open you want it to be, and the length you want it to be, where you want it to start. So mine is starting at my new line exactly, my new line exactly. So that is where mine is starting. So you determine how you want yours to be, where you want it to start, and how wide you want it to be. So right here from my new line, I'm going in by 2 inches, but I was a little bit confused here, contemplating, should I make it 2, should I make it 2.5? So you can do whatever you want, 2 inches, 2.5, or 3 inches, whatever you want. So on this down part, I measured 5 inches. So from this line I made up, I connected it down to the down part. So I've used the fabric to cut the lace. So I'm done cutting it, and I'll go ahead and start sewing it up together. So I'm done attaching the lace with the doll face, and as well as the lining, and then the up part as well. So what is left is to stitch up this shoulder part, and then I'll go ahead and shape everything.